Hello, good afternoon and welcome back to the Fish Locker out on the shore. I'm up an estuary today. I'm just trying to scratch out a little bit of a session in some shelter. This time of year when you're coming into autumn, starting in the winter, you've just got to take every single opportunity that you can to try and get out fishing, because the weather is not being kind to us. Yeah, so today I'm right up an estuary and I'm just going to scratch. All I've got is, at the moment, I've just got my first two baits out. Anyone who watches my videos knows I like to try and get a bait in the water. So I've got some fishing while I'm setting everything else up. All I'm going to do, I'll run you through the rigs in a minute. Today, unfortunately, has not started off well. I like to try and be as positive as I can all the time. Yeah, walking down to this market today when I've done a bit of a climbing and messing about and slipping around in the mud, I have somehow lost my filleting knife. Hopefully when I retrace my steps when I'm heading back out of here, I will find it again. But yeah, hopefully today is going to get better. Yeah, the rigs that I'm using today are very simple. They're going to be either running ledger rigs or Wessex rigs. That's like a one up, one down. When I bring these in, or when I rebait another one, I will show you it. But the bait today, courtesy of my friend Jammy at Jammy Sea Baits, is some fantastic fresh lugworm. Now when you're fishing up in estuaries like this, you're going to catch a range of species. The ones today that I'm looking for are going to be bass, flounder, possibly even, like, if we're not too far from the sea, we might get a whiteling, might get a codling, but yeah, bass and flounder, maybe even a late bream, could be anything else. I'm just wanting to catch fish. That's it, that's how desperate we've got. We're just trying to catch anything. Wish me luck. We have got a lot of wind today. It's coming over top of us. I hope the audio is going to be all right. I will just do my very best. At the moment, where we are right now, we're quite exposed because we're right down at the low tide mark. I mean, you can probably see here which way the rods are facing, which way the wind's blowing the water. The wind is coming this way and the tide is also ebbing off. Now we've got another hour before low tide. Whenever you're fishing areas and marked estuaries like this, you need to be careful about the tide coming back in, because it's going out that way, it's coming in this way, but it might go behind me and cut me off. You just need, yeah, every mark's different. I know that it was safe for me to get over here at an hour and a half before low water. So that means that I need to get back over there before an hour and a half after low water. You know, so it's come down to that point, that's where I got across. It'll go down to low water and then it'll come back up again. So I know before the tide gets back here, I need to get back to safety, back to shore. Always give yourself a bit of a margin of error as well. Every mark's different. Just be safe when you're doing it. The rigs that I'm using, like I say, are Wessex rigs. The water, it's a little bit murky, but it's still quite clear. We have had a lot of rainwater down, but it's not seemed to have affected the clarity too much. A Wessex rig is also known as a one up, one down. That's because very simply it's got one hook above the lead and one hook below the lead. I've got a bite on one of them rods, I'm going to have to check it in a minute. So it's got, I'm going to fix a lead into here. It incorporates a sliding ledger and one above, so it's pretty much, it's covering two bases. So it's got a bait above the lead and a bait below the lead. Also, the one below the lead, I have affixed a couple of flotation beads because there will be crabs in here. Now we have got the wind and we've got the current coming down, so my baits are going to trot. So I'm going to chuck them just up a little bit up tide and let them trot back. That's good. At flounders, they like a bit of movement, which is why I've put a little bit of this, like a couple of beads, a bit of bling, some flotation beads. And when I'm reeling these rods in, I won't strike it, wind it in like that. I'll wind it in slowly so it trundles along the bottom. And the reason for being is that when I'm winding it in slowly and this weight is dragging along the bottom, it creates like little puffs of sand. And right behind the puffs of sand is going to be my bait with my flotation bait. So the fish will see the puffs of sand, they'll see all the disturbance. They don't know what it is, they just know it's disturbance. They're like, oh, that could be something I can eat. And I'm going to go and have a look. Straight past it is my bait. That's the theory anyway. Yeah. Small hooks today as well. These are, that's a size 2, but that's a size 2, but that's a size 1. And these are just fine wire Aberdeen hooks. That's how small they are. You can catch big fish on a small hook, but you can't catch small fish on a big hook. And we just want to catch fish today. Now I have got some ragworm in my bag. I'm going to use these lugworms up because I've got more lugworm than ragworm. But yeah, all I do is just, you can use a baiting needle or you can just drop it in the mud like that. You can use a baiting needle or you can just thread it up the hook like what I do. If I'm making streamlined baits, I'm going to be casting a long way and I want them to be wrapped up perfect, I will use a baiting needle. But when all I'm doing, I won't be chucking these more than about 30-40 yards. Yeah, I won't be chucking these any distance at all, so I don't need to worry too much about it. All I'm going to do is I'm just going to find a worm that is the right size. No, that's a monster. Find a worm that is the right size for the hook, thread it down the hook. And now what I've got is I've got a pre-baited rig that I'm going to hang from the tripod, so that as soon as I bring in one of those rods, I've got a fresh bait to clip up and cast it out, saving me that little bit of time. There, that's the rig, all ready to go. One bait above the weight, one bait below the weight. Yeah, I cover that a lot I mention it quite a lot in the videos because it's something that I think is worth mentioning. And that's about pre-baiting, pre-making hook lengths. I've got 4 or 5 rigs ready to go on little tiny rig winders like that keeps them from tangling up. And then all I'll do is I'll pre-bait them, like now when I've got baits fishing, because it might only take you 2 minutes to rebait. If you rebait 10 times in an hour, you've lost 20 minutes. Put that over an entire session, you've lost like an entire couple of hours of fishing time, and that could be all the difference of catching a fish or not catching a fish. I am a little bit early to fish for flounders. Usually I like to wait for like the first frost because the cold puts the crabs off. Now it is still, water's still probably about 16 degrees. So we are going to be getting hammered by crabs. I'm going to bring these rods in and check them, see what they're like. I'm expecting that there are going to be no baits are going to be left because the crabs are going to have it. That means this, I've given it for 15 minutes, next time I'll do it for 10 minutes. And if it's still getting eaten after 10 minutes, I'll have to change them after 5 minutes. So yeah, it's just about keeping baits going out there, because there's no point having your rigs out there if we've got no bait on the hooks. Like I said, all I'm doing is I'm just keeping the rod tip down and I'm slowly winding in. Just slowly winding in. That way the baits, if there's any baits left, they'll be trundling along the seabed. A flounder might see them and might attack them. Now I've caught loads of fish like this. You might even be lucky. What I've done a couple of times before is there's been no bait left, just some beads. And because it's trundling along the seabed behind a weight and it's puffing up, they'll attack it anyway. So yeah, definitely worth it. Yeah. Clean as a whistle. Not a scrap of bait left on them. So I've changed the baits out again. Both of them come back absolutely stripped. I think it's going to be crabs and little tiny fish at the minute. So I'm just going to have to keep on top of it. I'm just going to have to start cycling the baits out a little bit faster. It's a lovely day when you can get out in the sunshine. It's a shame about this wind. It's been blowing non-stop for like 3 or 4 weeks. You keep an eye on them rods for me, please. Yeah, my plan today is I'm going to fish here for a couple of hours, and then as the tide pushes me back, I'm going to fish, what is it now? I'll have ended up fishing like an hour and a half down and maybe 3 hours up. We'll see where that gets us. Or we'll see how long my bait lasts for. Because if we're getting absolutely destroyed by crabs, the bait's not going to last. The bait's not going to last that long. Bait might only last 3 hours. Okay. There we go. Glad to catch a fish, but it's not the fish that I want. You get spiked more by the little ones than you do from the big ones. Yeah. That was another thing, is I don't want the baits to be too static because the crabs will find them. So every now and again, if they stop like that, just give them a little wind just to dislodge them, because they'll roll around until they find a little bit of a gully. I don't mind them sitting there for 30 seconds, a minute. I don't want them to sit there too long. So every now and again, all I'll do is I'll just give the reels like a wind. When we were younger, when we were kids, you go out without any baits and you just go, you follow the tide down. Follow the tide down with a bucket and a fork. Dig yourself a load of worms, either lugworms or maddies or harbour rags, anything like that you can find. And then as the tide starts to, as it gets to low water, start fishing and walk backwards over the ground that you've turned over using the worms that you've just dug. Now, some people will consider it lazy, some people will just say, well, it's just using your time. Well, I haven't got the time to go out digging. I've just bought mine from a local dealer who buys these from local bait diggers. I like going and collecting my own bait, but sometimes it's just not feasible. Clean as a whistle. Yeah, these crabs really are on form today. Crabs are absolutely stripping me. This is, like I was saying earlier, this is why it's generally better to wait until after a couple of frosts, because the frosts, the cold, knocks the crabs on the head. So your baits last longer so you can catch more fish. I'm having to rebait that frequently. I can't keep up. I can't keep up with the spare bait, the spare rig. You just got to do your best. Yeah, if I come out of here with a nice flounder today, I will be very, very happy. That's the target species. Like, all I'm doing is I'm just threading a worm up the hook. Target species is a nice fat flounder. Unfortunately, this is what we're up against. Just non-stop crabs. The tide's turned now and I'm catching nothing but stacks and stacks of these. Just shore crabs, absolutely everywhere. Yeah, look. Every cast is coming back with a crab on it. So yeah, I've I've fed the crabs round here for an hour or so. I'm going to wrap all my gear up and then walk back while I've still got plenty of time, and we'll carry on the session further up the shore. Right, you see the water there behind me? You know what I was talking about earlier on, that the tide can come round behind you? Well, that bank, I was fishing on the opposite side of that bank. So as the tides turned round and started flooding in, it's going to fill up here behind me. So if I hadn't come off when I did, I would have ended up getting stuck. Now, I've got my rods set up there. I brought my rods across, put them down. There's a gent just fishing up the way. I left all my gear with him and I retraced my steps, and I am over the moon. I'm really glad I found that. Now, I'm going to keep an eye on it because we're only fishing into maybe 2 or 3 feet of water. But as the tide started flooding in, the fish generally come in with the tide, and this is when you'll find them. We've got a bite now. That's the way. There we go. I am really happy to see this fish. you say, look, there's floating beads, and that was just a lugworm tipped with a bit of ragworm. I'm going to get it in that pail of water and we'll get it unhooked. But there's the target species. An interesting thing about this flounder is it only has one eye. See there in that little hole where its other eye used to be. Right, now that I've got myself sorted and this guy's relaxed, see about getting the hook out of him. One of the reasons why I make those rigs like I do is so that the bottom hook length is a detachable hook length. So like as now, all I did was I just unclipped it, put the flounder in a pail of water, clipped on another pre-baited one and cast out. What I'm going to do now is, now that this flounder has calmed down, I'm going to try and show you how to unhook it, because the hook it's not that deep, I can still see it, but it's deep enough. What I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the unhooking with one of these. This is just a little tool that I made at home. You can get them, it's just a disgorger. But yeah, you go in underneath the gill, pass this through between the gill membranes so you don't touch the gill membranes, pass it out through the mouth, wrap the line around it and pull it back. That turns the hook, then you can pull it out. You get all this bait and everything out of the way. Gently go in between the gill membranes so you don't touch the gills. Out the front, wrap the line around and then bring it back. Now we're doing this very gently. There, look. That has pulled the line out through the gills there, look. That has turned the hook around inside the fish's mouth. And all you need to do is you need to go in, go around the hook, pull the hook out. There, look. And there's the hook out. No damage to the fish at all. Let's get it back in this tub of water. There we are. I hope that showed you, by using just a very simple homemade disgorger like this, I've managed to take the hook and the hook length all out of the fish without causing any damage at all. Now a deep hooked fish like that, if you can't see the hook at all, if it's gone all the way past the gullet, the best thing you can do is just snip that off as close to the hook as you can and let the fish go. What'll happen is the hook will dissolve eventually and the fish will survive. If you start digging around, you're going to start causing injury. If you start damaging any of the gills, it's not going to do it any favours at all. So yeah, all you do is, because inside the fish's, if that's the fish's mouth, the hook has gone in that way, like that. So by going in through the gill and wrapping around the line, when you pull this, it turns the hook around so that you can just pull it straight out of the mouth. And we have a perfectly happy, healthy flounder. Even if he has only got one eye. Stick him out of the water and let it go. Can't wait to be back. Incredibly camouflaged, aren't they? Your eye's bigger than his belly. God, it's lovely in here now. Tucked right in house at wind. Yeah, well, could get away with just a polo shirt. Wouldn't believe it was November, would you? Yeah, it's still too warm for this. The crabs have just absolutely destroyed me all day. Now, I don't know if you can see the water's coming in. It's fair racing in now. I'm going to have to keep moving back. I've got about a quarter of a pound of ragworm left, so I'm going to be able to fish for possibly another half an hour. Fingers crossed I can winkle out another fish. I've had one flounder, and I think I've had 5 or 6 little tiny schoolies, just like schoolie tiny bass. Now there was an old boy, I don't know if you heard him in some of the earlier clips. I asked him if he wanted to be on the camera, and I asked him if he wanted me to film him what he was doing, but he just said he was a bit camera shy. He's called Tony, he's a local boy around here. I've met him a few times. He's a lovely bloke and really really brilliant shore angler. He's if there's a flatfish, if there's a flounder competition anywhere in Cornwall, he's going to place in it if he doesn't win it. And yeah, he's just absolutely schooled me today. I got down here early and I trunched through all the mud, and I got set up, and he come walking past me with his fork and he was digging a bit away. I mean, like I was saying, like when we were younger, that you'd follow the tide down and dig your worm, and then when it gets to low tide, then fish back with the worms that you just dug. Yeah, he come out, dug a load of worms, dug some lugworms, some ragworms, some maddies, some harbour rag, some little tiny soft rag, and then had a chat to me and was like, oh yeah, I'm going home for an hour, I'm going to have my dinner, and then I'm going to come back. So all that messing about that I did earlier, he come back and was sat here ready for tide to turn. In the period of time that I've been here and I've caught 1 flounder, he's caught 3. And the only thing he's doing different, apart from the fact that he's probably a better fisherman than me, the only thing that he's doing different is his bait presentation. Is he had 1 either big ragworm or big lugworm, and he had about half a dozen little maddies on the hook. Like I was saying earlier about maddies, that's just absolutely proven my point. Outfished me, well, 3 to 1. Yeah, like I say, I might get about half an hour left, half an hour more. I'm going to have to move all my gear back before it floats away. We've used all the bait up now, we've come to the end. The tide is literally like lapping round my ankles. Yeah, I'm glad I forced myself to come out today. Now, I've made a session out of nothing. It's absolutely howling a gale everywhere, and I just tried to find a little bit of shelter and do a bit of fishing. Now normally I wouldn't come fishing up in the estuaries until the middle of winter, until we'd had a couple of hard frosts, and that's to knock the crabs on the head. That shows you in the catches that we had today. I mean, we didn't catch a lot, it wasn't a red letter day by anyone's standards. We had 1 nice flounder, an unusual flounder actually, because it only had 1 eye. I had like 6 or 7, maybe even 8 little schoolie bass, and just a million crabs. Every single time the rigs were just getting stripped out, or it was coming back with crabs on the hooks. Yeah. It's still warm. The water's still like 16 degrees, and the air temperature, well, I could have got away with just wearing a polo shirt today if it hadn't been so windy. The rigs, really simple, just 1 up, 1 downs, or 6 rigs depending what you call them, or running ledgers with like a couple of flotation baits. The rods, just 4.2 metre rods. Now these were all, I think it's 100 to 225 gram casting. Now 2 of them were 4.2 and 1 of them was 4.5, which is exactly the same. The reels that I was using were 7,000 size. There's nothing special about what I was using or what I was doing. I was just trying to make a session out of now. I'm glad I forced myself to get out, because it's difficult at this time of year. Yeah. We will be returning here when the weather has got a little bit harder, when the weather's got a little bit colder, just to try and knock the crabs on the head. I have spent 30 quid on bait, and I've caught 1 flounder and half a dozen little schoolies and fed the crabs. Yeah, so there you go. Speaking of bait, actually, yeah, Tony that I mentioned absolutely schooled me. I caught 1 flounder and he caught 3, and he caught just as many schoolies, and he fished for half the amount of time. The difference being was that he was using maddies, using little maddie rags. Now I did mention them earlier on when I was on about digging your own bait. That just goes to show you, the proof is in the pudding. Yes, I hope you've enjoyed joining me. Hope you found it interesting. All the very best. See you later.